Hi, this is Kathy with In Your Corner, where decision, commitment, and accountability will put you on the path to your destiny. I was thinking, do you ever know when it's time to leave your current profession? I hear people coming to me often talking about, hey, Kathy, you know what? I don't know if I have reached my fullest capacity on my current position. I don't know if my current job no longer creates the challenges for me that I needed to create, or I don't know if I've just stayed at the party too long. Sometimes that can happen, you know? So tonight we're going to talk about, is it time to go? We're going to talk about what type of things we should evaluate when we're looking at changing careers. You know, recently I was looking at this article in a local newspaper, and it was talking about addressing employee burnout was the title of the article. What I found interesting about the article is most people, when they think of being burnt out, they think of stress, but the article demonstrated a clear delineation between stress and burnout, which I found to be really interesting, right? Most jobs bring about a certain amount of stress. Sometimes you have to meet year-end deadlines, month-end deadlines, quarterly deadlines, and there's a certain amount of stress in bringing the team together and having them execute to this particular goal. But in that stress, the team knows, as well as the person that's driving the team knows, that there is a visible end in sight. You know, after you meet that deliverable, after that particular date, after that closeout of the books, you can see light at the end of the tunnel because you know that this is going to end. This differs from burnout. Burnout is when you have attrition on your job, where there's increased scope and responsibility, where you're expected to do more with less, where you're taking on more responsibility, where you can see that there is no end in sight and that you're not really being compensated for the scope that you are now responsible for. This creates burnout, and this is very different than stress. And what I'm encountering in people that I'm meeting is they're not stressed out, they're burnt out. So should I change jobs? Can I expect this same thing in the overall industry that I'm in? Or should I expect something different? Should I, when I'm going through the interviewing process, set my expectations in advance? How do I get from a place where I can see that I should change careers, change decisions, or just change my scope somehow? So today we have Tanisha Goldsmith, and she's going to help us make sense of it all, how to know when it's time to go. Thanks, Tanisha, for being on our show today.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for having me.
So, Tanisha, tell me, have you ever been with an employer where you knew it was time to go? And what were the signs that led you to know that it was that time?
Oh my, that's a loaded question, but yes, I totally have an example. I started my career basically, as a receptionist, and I learned really fast that applying myself would aid me no matter what position I held. And so I always applied myself, and I grew within positions quite fast until I would cap out within the company. And I'd always find myself in these interesting conversations with my superior asking me like, so what's next? Now that you've gone here, now what? Now what? So that being said, I would find myself negotiating to stay comfortable and create new positions for myself that allowed me to just stay within the company instead of stretching myself. And so I have been that person who's been a little bit burnt out because as you begin to evolve and change, the company begins to evolve and change, but I've always outstayed my welcome because it's almost as if God says to me, you can be doing so much more. You've learned what you've learned here. Now it's time to move forward. But I think all of us get comfortable with just staying where we are because we're comfortable. And so, yeah, I've totally outstayed my welcome and have gotten the boot by God himself.
I totally understand that. That makes me think of staying too long at the party, right? Because it's not natural for us as individuals to step out of our comfort zone, right?
Exactly.
So as opposed to stepping out of our comfort zone and maximizing our potential, we tend to just recreate different responsibilities within our comfort zone, thinking that we're growing when we're really not,
Exactly.
right? But stepping out does take courage.
Mhm.
you know Many people know that I have not always been in business, right? And so I have this one toe in my full-time employment and this other foot in my business, and it's a balancing act to maintain them both. I am trying to invest more in where I want to go
Mhm.
and put in less where I currently am, so that I can at some point make the transition. So Tanisha, what did you do to make that transition into your own business?
Well, you said key term. When you stay at the parties too late, sometimes you get kicked out, right? So for me, I was working with this great company, and it was a very small team. We had achieved a lot of cool goals, and we had streamlined the company. So much so that I streamlined the company so well that I became out of a job because the employer came to me and basically let me know after I asked for a raise. First time in 3 years, I asked for a raise. She let me know that she wasn't in a position to give me a raise and she was going to terminate the position, but then offered me the same salary to work remotely. And so for me, it was like, wow. And I remember the straw that broke the camel's back was when she said to me, you know, and I need you to work for 1 month and then, you can go. And I just thought to myself, like, why would I waste another 30 days of my life working for this company that doesn't honor me enough to give me a raise after 3 years? I'm not gaining anything by being here other than another paycheck. And so I kind of jumped out of the plane with no parachute, but only my last check because, they have 72 hours to give you that check.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I went into my wonderful depression. So I was like, what is this? Why is this? I gave everything.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember my spirit telling me, you knew that this was coming because it's time for you to go. It's not even that you didn't deserve a raise. It's not even that you're not capable of going to the next level with this company. It's just that I have something different for you, entrepreneurship. And
Right.
I remember like my last year of working with that company, we were doing a lot of workshops where we were teaching people how to save up their money before transitioning into entrepreneurship. So it was like, if you're a woman who wants to start your own business, you need to get a financial system. The 50-30-20 rule helps. You need to kind of cut out certain things and start to educate yourself on business and what you want to do. And so I was kind of being in an environment where I was absorbing that. So
Tell me more about the 50-30-20 rule.
well, the 50
Maybe I have some entrepreneurs online that's interested in.
Okay, so how I was able to start my business, I started it with under $100, honestly. So like I said, after my 3-day depression, I started to look at what I had and how to split that up. So 50% of it went towards my fixed expenses, things that I knew would be costing, the same thing every month. 20% I paid myself, which is my savings account towards my financial goal because I needed to build a cash cushion, So I was like, okay,
Right.
20%. And then 30% I used for fun. And by fun, I mean I traveled to see my family, which was good for my spirit.
Uh-huh.
Filmed something there. I filmed a reality show trailer, which totally put me on the path to where I am now because that was one of my first investments of me believing in myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then, I just kept at it. Like every piece of money that came in, 50,
Mm-hmm.
30, 20, 50, 30, 20, I would just split it up.
Mm-hmm.
And I would know how much I had towards my priorities and how much I
Right.
had to actually use. And my fiance was very helpful in that all of it because I was so depressed. Like, what am I going to do? He's
Uh-huh.
like, you've made a career building companies. Why don't you just work for yourself?
Right.
And I knew I had it in me, but I honestly
Right.
hated to death. I was like, okay, I have the resources to do it. I have the know-how to do it, But for some reason, I just didn't believe that people would pay me on my own to help them do what I had done tens of businesses, do before. I've actually helped a lot of businesses build their companies in Excel. And so I just didn't have the courage and faith in myself. So what I did was just keeping that 50, 30, 20 in mind. Every piece of money I came, I saved it, I applied it. And then finally I started the company, $26. $26 and a $14 GoDaddy membership. At the time, they had a special program where you can get a job, email box and everything for $13. I took advantage of that. So $50 I took and I started my little consulting business, and I started writing out my goals on my bathroom mirror.
How about that?
I took a little dry eraser, and every morning I was like, I'm tired of looking in the mirror and seeing myself. I want to see my goals, on my face. And
I was talking to somebody recently, and what they did was, and I was like, you know what? I like the way that is. And so I'm going to apply that, and I want to share that with my listeners. What they did was, instead of writing their goals down in a place where they could visually see them, they took pictures of them. They took images off the internet and created a photo album that says my goals, and then they scroll through, right? And it's a picture of everything that how they see themselves in the future. And what happens is it affects your subliminal conscious, and you start progressing toward that image that you're seeing, whether you're conscious that you're doing it or not. This is why it's important to write your goals down. It's just so awesome. But I find that a lot of people are challenged trying to take that initial step of believing in themselves. But what's interesting is you put in so many hours and so many years on a job, and you're proficient at what you do because this is why they pay you. So there's no reason why, if they're going to pay you to do what you do, why somebody else wouldn't pay you to do what you do too.
And you know what it is? I think it's just, I hate to say this, but it really is lack of confidence, lack of self-confidence. We get so used to just accepting.
Right. Selling our labor as opposed to, because that's what you're doing with your employer. You're selling your labor.
Exactly. And I had to evaluate it. I said, funny thing is, I was like, I keep saying I was pushed into entrepreneurship because after I was depressed about it, and, I took my last money and I invested it in a certain way, but then I also kept going on interviews because I was still looking for the security. Like,
right.
I need to just go to a new company. And for the first time ever in my life and career, I had people emailing me telling me that I was overqualified and that I would be bored. Are you kidding me? You have a wonderful resume. I just feel like you would be so bored in this job. And for me, it was just like, once again, stretching my paradigm and challenging myself to believe, do I have what it takes? And what's the difference between me and my employer? They took the chance on themselves.
Right.
The only difference. And has it been easy being an entrepreneur? No, but
no way.
Yeah, I just knew it was time to go because, with each position, I learned something from each employer. And I feel like the last job that I had, which was 3 years ago, I had that feeling of, I don't feel like I'm going to be here for long. And I couldn't identify what it was at the time, but it was really like me capping out and knowing everything that I needed to go to the next level. And even so, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly learning, evolving, repeat. But for the most part, part of knowing that it's time to go is just being in tune with your ultimate, big picture. Because my big picture was always to work smarter,
right,
not harder. And
right.
when I calculated, like, I'm giving this company 160 hours of my life.
Right.
And it's draining me. I don't have energy to go put behind myself. I have money possibly, but you also need to have energy when you're going to embark on something like this, because the worst thing you can do is make a decision when you're tired, exhausted, out. That's the worst thing you can do. And so for me, I really, really had to say to myself, I believe in me. Every day I just have to look in the mirror. And like I said, I would write my goals in the mirror, like finances down to what I thought about myself. And I would just repeat it. Every time I look in the mirror, I would just repeat it. And before I knew it, I had like 4 clients within a week's time. And I had generated more money than I made in a year within months. And I mean, no better confidence. The only confidence booster, confidence booster, big time would be to get those new clients and make as much money as you did in 1 year in a month's time, you know.
Exactly. And I would, just look at what it is that you think you're talented at and just kind of test the water a little bit while you are still working. See if there's a market for that, or see if people will purchase that service or product that you're providing, and then as you get out of your business exactly what you put into it, right? So if you put 30 hours into it, you're going to get 30 hours dividend back from it, but there comes a point, right, where a lot of people are like, they might be single moms, they might be going through other different things, but you know what? To me, those are the most creative
Absolutely.
and the most innovative people are single parents, because
Absolutely.
they are single parents.
Well,
and they have to be creative and innovative.
I'm like, my parents, well, my father was an entrepreneur growing up. So I got to grow up running a family business and seeing how he approached life and art and everything. And the one thing that I think every entrepreneur, if you're going to go into owning your own business, the one thing you have to do is know that balance of work life. And you have to understand that you have to know how productive you are within your time. Because
right.
If it's going to take you just said work 30 hours. If it's going to take you 30 hours to do one task, you
right.
have to make sure that you know how productive you can be and how you can turn around in your business. And like you said, assessing your own personal gifts and talents really does help. And you have to take that time for yourself, because I'm good at a lot of things, right? But what I chose to start a business in, people are kind of like, wow, so did you go to college for this? No,
right.
not myself. I paid attention. I asked the right questions along the way,
right.
Be to God. But ultimately, what I ultimately love has nothing to do with what I started my business with. I enjoy what I do, and I love helping people, which is the ultimate thing, helping people manifest those things. But, if you would have asked me 5 years ago, if I would have been, here today owning my own business as a branding marketing consultant, I would have never in a million years said, oh yeah, that's what I see myself doing. I'll be doing that. I had a vision. So, sometimes you don't know when it's time to go or what that's going to look like, what your next step is. But I learned now how to listen to that voice, where I hear that voice that's like, hey, guess what? Look over here. Sometimes you got to look over there to see where you may have to go.
And you have to be still to hear that voice tell you to look over there. And this is why it's important to have the work-life balance that you're talking about.
Yes.
And then there's a certain time when you really know yourself that you are optimum, that you're at peak.
Yes.
And see, my most optimum time is in the morning. I'm not much of a late night person.
Yeah.
I'm an early morning person. So when I get up, I am the most creative, the most innovative. I can accomplish the most between maybe 5 a.m. and 2 p.m. After that, it's a nosedive. Basically, after that is pretty amazing.
You know yourself, absolutely.
Right, but you have to know yourself completely.
And I'm the same. I'm an early bird. I can get up at 5 a.m. and handle things, because a lot of my clients are on the East Coast as well, or CT, that range, that time zone.
Right.
But it's after a certain time, my brain energy is gone. It's like when you
Yep.
like 4 different businesses, 4 different industries.
Right.
The brain is kind of like blah, 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 blah. Laundry,
right.
laundry, dinner.
I understand. I do. Oh man, T, this has been really awesome. So tell my listeners how they can reach out to you.
Well, they can find me at atjtmedia.com, at jtmedia.com. And you can learn all about what I do for my digital marketing company. And yeah, find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at jtmedia.
Wonderful. So if any of you are struggling with trying to determine if it's time for you to change careers, or if you stay too long at the party, reach out to me. I can be reached at inyourkorner.com. I'm across all social media platforms. Talk to you soon. Thanks for joining me.